This year, as we approach Overdose Awareness Day and National Recovery Month, we will be sharing videos of other people's experiences and perspectives in an effort to reduce stigma and enhance awareness on the topic of addiction. We are calling it the H.O.P.E Project, hearing other people's experiences. Join us as our special guests share their personal experiences and how addiction has touched their lives. Please share, like, and subscribe to our channel.
Hello, and thank you for being with us today. I'm
Hi,
so glad
Christine.
that you're here. I know that you and I had talked about a video series that the Shevlin Foundation wanted to put together this year to shine a light on overdose awareness, to reduce the stigma of addiction, to understand better overdoses, and also in the month of September to promote recovery in
Great.
National Recovery Month. But
Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome, and we're happy to do it and glad that you're a part of it. Reducing the stigma is something we take seriously, in our work at the Shevlin Foundation all the time. And that our work is primarily working with patients who are afflicted with addiction while they're in treatment, helping them overcome the obstacles when they get ready to discharge. So things like housing, food, clothing, job helps become imperative. But we know that a big part of what we do is walking with families. And you and I met, it'll be a year ago at the end of this month. And I know part of your story, and I'm just so grateful you're here.
Thank you.
Shedding a light and giving a face to those that we've lost from addiction, and specifically in this conversation from accidental overdose, is important to us. The dignity, the personhood of your loved one. And I think what I've learned about Joey, I feel like I've gotten to know him a little bit, but we'd like others to know about him and his life. So if you don't mind, we'll just get started with a couple of questions. Tell me about your family, where you live, how long you've been married, etc., if you don't mind. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. I'm married to Joe, the love of my life, my best friend. We met through his youngest brother, who I grew up with since I was 5 years old. And we've been married, it will be 30 years next year. So this September is 29. And we have Joey, who's an angel, and Mikey and Angie. They're all a year apart. So Joey's forever 24. And Angie right now is 25, Mikey is 26. So sadly, Angie just reminded me on her birthday that this will be their last year of being a year apart. So that's hard for us. You go for their whole lifetime being a year apart. We have 2 dogs, beautiful dogs. The vet tells us they're Basenjis, which if you look up a Basenji, it's an African dog that doesn't bark. So the one good feature of the dog, our dogs don't have. So they both bark, but they do look like Basenji. And we live in Havertown, and we've lived there all of our marriage. So we also both grew up in Delaware County. We both went to St. Dorothy's Parish and Cardinal O'Hara. That's like a Delco thing, or what parish are you from?
Yes, well, we're very proud of Delco, right? Born and raised here as well. And of course, the heart of our mission is right here in Delaware County. We work in every county, but our heart is here, because in my own family, that's where addiction started and where it's also being redeemed. So we're grateful to be a part of this part of Pennsylvania, and specifically Delaware County. Well, thank you for sharing that about your family. Tell me about Joey, so I get a good picture, and more importantly, our viewers get a good picture of the type of person he was. So his personality, his, favorite foods, maybe the music that he listened to. Give us a picture of Joey.
Okay. He was my firstborn. So he was by far a mama's boy. Very smart, very handsome, and really kind and loving. Angie started pulling up videos that we take, but we never get to watch. And we all can see what a big, huge heart he had, because his whole, when he was 1 year old, he had a baby brother. And when he was 2 years old, he had a baby brother and a baby sister. So he's just the most loving, kind person you would ever meet. He was smart and superior in athletics. Just so fun to watch. So it would blow your mind sometimes. So that was his some of his characteristics. Chicken was essential in his life, literally. You know, not just his favorite, but that's the only protein meat that he ate. And music was a huge part of his life. He, you know, his friends will tell you half of the music that they listened to was because of Joey, because he found it and he sent it to them. He liked Kanye West and Justin Bieber, probably a bunch more that he wouldn't share music with me about. But, you know, in Angie's eulogy, we all had a eulogy. In Angie's eulogy, she said something to the effect of, my brother had a real talent. Sometimes he would send us links to music that wasn't even written yet. But that's how quickly and, you know, secretively he could find these things. So music was a really big part of his life with his friends and his brother and sister.
Thank you. That's amazing. I think music, especially with those that are creative, ends up becoming a life force for folks, and especially with young adults. So you and I have our favorites, and our children have their favorites. So Anne, as you know, after someone passes, the obituary contains those that people have loved, those that are most important to them. And I was really struck, I thought it was profound in Joey's, that you put that he fought this courageous battle with addiction. And that really resonated with me. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that battle and how that started, or what that looked like, whatever you're comfortable sharing?
Of course. You know, you never dream of preparing to write an obituary, but the second we knew we had to, the words fierce, courageous were just pouring out of us, because Joey was 18 when he was on top of the world, and his life changed in a way that was completely unexpected, and brought him to a place that was so sad and so hard for him to imagine life getting better. And he ended up using pills, covering up his depression. And after about 3 months, that was a summertime, and after about 3 months of trying to cover this up, he ended up falling asleep behind the wheel of a car, had pills in his sock. He ended up being arrested. And then he and our family learned what he was dealing with, which was an addiction to these pills. And he knew he wanted to stop, but he straight up said, I couldn't stop, Mom. It was really scary. So I hate to look at it that way, but we were lucky that we found out so quickly and he got the help he needed so quickly. The reason we say a fierce and courageous battle was because from that time when he was 18 years old, he knew what he had to do. He was told by people in jail, people in recovery, people in, homes that he would stay in for recovery. So he knew what he had to do. He didn't go out anymore. You know, from 18 until 24, he was home watching movies with us, playing video games with his friends, watching sports with his friends and us. That was the kind of battle he fought. He didn't continue to go out, and he wanted to win this battle. And we were told, before fentanyl was so prevalent, we were told, relapse is part of recovery, and we understood it 100%. And so if relapse happened, the rule in our house was, it's okay, but you have to go back for treatment. And he did every time. So probably, I never count it. I have all my records. Someday I might count, but probably about 15 times he ended up going back into treatment while he was home from 18 until he passed at 24. But, when we look back at his last year, he went out on top. He was at the healthiest he'd ever been, the most active he'd ever been. He wasn't home anymore. He decided at 24 that he was ready to try to move out and make it on his own. And he was so proud of himself, supporting himself in a home. But when relapse happens with fentanyl, it's very rare to pull out of that sometimes when you're your body is free from the drugs. So that's what happened with Joey. He went out on top. Every picture we have of Joey that we show is within the last 6 months of his life, and we're so proud of him for that, because some people have to dig and dig and dig for beautiful pictures. So if nothing else, we had the best time with him before he left us.
That's a gift.
It is, and we recognize
that moment and being with him. That's a real gift. Thank you for giving us a glimpse into his life and his struggles, because I think his story, they're all very unique, obviously, to each person, but his is really unique. And that we continue to lose so many to overdose. I mean, the last numbers had over 100,000 lost last year, and so many families have walked the journey that you and your husband and your children and the community have walked after losing a loved one in the epidemic. I've sensed with those that I've met this feeling as a parent who's lost a child, right? The most unnatural thing for any parent to go through. That people feel alone and isolated. People feel shame many times, and for various reasons, guilt or other emotions associated with their child succumbing to this disease, and specifically with an overdose. I haven't walked in those shoes, but I can't imagine, where do you turn in such horrible loss? And then what resources, how did you start that journey of loss, of grief? And what resources are actually available to families who have journeyed like you and the rest of your family have?
It's such a good question, Christine. And again, it's a strange word to use, but I was blessed. I was blessed when Joey learned what he was dealing with was addiction, because someone told me I couldn't speak. I couldn't, my breath was just gone from my body when you learn your child is dealing with something that you can't help in any way. So I spent 5 years going to meetings every week and learning everything I could to help Joey, to help my family, so that we all were aware of what we needed to do. When Joey passed, all those people from those meetings then gave me a new meeting. They told me, you have to continue what you're doing for your strength, but it's a little different, So I right away started with G.R.A.S.P, which is an acronym for Grief Recovery After Substance Passing. And so everyone in those groups has lost a loved one, whether it's a boyfriend, a cousin, a parent, or a child. So I started those meetings right away. They're on Wednesday nights, once a month, the first Wednesday. And I also started another meeting that begins the first Monday of every month and the third Tuesday, and that's Bereaved Parents of Delaware County. Bereaved Parents of Delaware County incorporates any loss at all, as long as you're a parent. Those are heartbreaking too, because you can be sitting next to someone who lost a 3-year-old son,
right.
And then you recognize, I had 24 years with my beautiful son, but those are tools that I think everyone can use. And I was blessed because I was already used to going to meetings. I was already used to sharing. It took me 2 years in ANON meetings. It took me 2 years to be able to speak without crying. And I still cried every day. I still cry every day. But, you get a sense of, if I can speak, what I say is going to help someone else. Because everything everyone else says in those meetings is like the Bible. You hear what they're going through. You hear how they got better. You learn what can help yourself, and you learn how what you say helps others. So to me, it was essential. And the rest of my family didn't have to go, because I always came home and taught them everything. But I do suggest that everybody goes. I really do. Sometimes, there would be like a family meeting where I would tell my family, like, we all have to go. But when Joey passed, anybody that I knew that was religious or in a community that would consider coming to my house and talking to us, I just brought them to my house. And I just said, everybody's got to be here on Sunday at 7:00. Someone's coming to talk to us. And, our church did that. And someone that I cleaned for had a father who was a pastor, and he did that. And those small things helped our family too, because it's important to sit around with your husband and your son and your daughter and hear their parts too, because we all suffer, but we all suffer a little differently,
Yeah.
So I really do suggest for anyone who's dealing with this. I've heard this analogy, you're going to be like a bottle that has been shaken up so much and just wants to explode. And in therapy and in groups and grief counseling, that's where you release, that's where you take the top off. And then you go back home and you begin to, focus on your life without wanting to explode. But you're always going to get to that point again. And that's where you do it, at these meetings.
Mm-hmm. Well put. And honestly, I can see now where he got his fierceness and his courageousness.
Thank you.
It's obvious to me, because you are fierce, girl. I'm blessed to know you.
Thank you.
So we're coming up on his anniversary, on Joey's anniversary, August 31st.
Mm-hmm.
And you do something very unique here in Delaware County. In fact, that's where you and I met this time last year. Did you want to share a little bit about the important event that's going to happen next week?
Sure. Thank you. So after Joey passed, August 31st, it happens to tragically also be Overdose Awareness Day. And we had done walks previously to Joey passing, because that's what you do in a recovery community. You walk for other people that you've lost. He didn't have any friends that used illicit drugs, and he didn't have any friends that passed, honestly. So, but we would walk for people that maybe he had met in the community. His first anniversary, we went to the cemetery with family and friends, and we had our own little walk. It was COVID. So, the cemetery likes the idea of having a community walk and bringing the community together, but COVID wouldn't allow that. So his second anniversary, we were permitted to have the walk in the cemetery with the whole community. And so that was last year, our first community walk, but really our second time doing it. And I thought it turned out beautifully. You live and learn. You get through some things that maybe you could have done better. And so this coming Wednesday will be our second walk with the community. And I'm looking forward to being with people who unfortunately don't have a lot of people to share the loss that their loved one is gone with. Some people don't really tell anybody. And so they're courageous and they share their angel with us, and then they allow their angel to be shared with our community for the walk. And it's really beautiful. It's nice.
I think it's a beautiful way to commemorate his life, the legacy of his life. And I remember finding out about the walk last year in the summertime and thinking, it's done in the right place. Because I remember someone saying to me, what do you mean it's in the cemetery? And I said, that's holy ground. That's where we lay the people that we've given birth to, that we've hugged our whole life, whose tears we've wiped and whose bruises we've, put ice on. In the Christian tradition, leaving our loved ones there in a cemetery feels in many ways, very sad. And yet it's beautiful. It's buried or laid to rest on sacred ground. And my faith tells me that we'll see them again, that their earthly life has ended, but that we will see them again in eternal life. I just think the courageousness of choosing that location and being there that night it just says something about you and your strong faith and your courageous family. So thank you. We'll make sure that we include information about the walk in case there isn't any cost to it. I know you've got
Correct.
some sponsors, which is
Mhm.
amazing, and we're happy to be a part of that. But I think
Thank
the
you.
more people who show up, the more we reduce stigma, right? I mean,
Right.
this is how we tell people in our community, this is important, we're doing this, and we're remembering those that we've lost. Is there anything else, Anne, that you and your family do to commemorate Joey? I didn't know if there were like some special other things that you...
Absolutely. I'll put Joey's name and face on anything I can. Maybe I'll leave something here at Panera. But we have a bench with a very beautiful plaque on it that says, "Sit with us, laugh with us, watch over us." And it faces the baseball field where he grew up playing at. So that was something the township allowed us to do. And Joe and I and my children, we drive past it twice a day, every day, because it's right down the street. There's a group that does a walk across America, and they have a trailer, and it has a wrap around it of, anyone lucky enough to get in there on time. So Joey's face is on a trailer that goes around the country spreading awareness. And that's a really beautiful thing. Because I'll get messages, Joey's in Arkansas today, Joey's in Colorado today. But there's airplanes with loved ones' names on it that fly around and pull down and teach children education about, the risks of drugs and taking a pill. So, like I said, I'll try to get Joey's picture and information on everything I can. So if I see it, I'm going to do it.
Well, obviously God is using you for a much bigger purpose than you ever knew about, and turning your tragedy and Joey's death into something that's life-giving has got to be difficult, but again, a blessing, right? That you can turn such sadness and grief into something beautiful, informative, and in many cases, I'm sure, life-saving. You won't know about it until later in life, but I'm sure.
Well, that's what we hope. That's what we hope.
And thank you so much for being with us today and for sharing the stories of Joey and your family, and sharing the ups and downs, the struggles, but also the victories that your family experienced in his battle. I'm grateful to have you as a friend, and we're grateful to have you in the community reducing the stigma. You're the best. We'll see you next week at the walk. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you to everyone in your foundation, too.
Thank you. Okay. God bless, Anne.
You too. Bye-bye.